everyone, and welcome to Upcycled Adulting, where I am always helping you overcome obstacles, grow to accomplish your goals, and create healthy habits. Today, we're going to be talking about going no contact. Now, we're not just talking about how to go no contact, we're also going to talk about why you may want to reconsider going no contact or why you might absolutely need to go no contact. And in addition to that, I'm going to address the subject of being the outsider to the no contact situation, meaning when people tell people, oh, you need to go no contact, what is the impact of that? When people are absolutely frustrated that you've gone no contact, what's going on there? So, if anybody in your family has ever gone no contact, or if you have that friend who is consistently complaining about their family or their in laws and who has a lot of family drama and they're not going no contact, we're going to talk about exactly what you can do to be supportive and how you can understand what that situation is. So today it's all about no contact, and I'm going to be sharing some of my personal experiences with this as well. So you can get a little bit of an inside look as to how this has happened for me personally and how this has played out in my life. And I'm going to share some interesting family dynamics that you may not even realize exist in your family or in the family of that friend that you're wondering why they're not going no contact. Because I have been seeing this play out and get discussed a lot on social media lately with it being close to the holidays. And I really think it's important to talk about this. So, kind of what brought up this conversation for me is the number of people who keep talking about going no contact with parents who parentified them, um, who have personality disorders, who are emotionally or mentally abusive or unkind, and what that actually does, what the messaging there is, right? And kind of the amount of shame that is being put on the victims of the situation, right? Like if you won't go no contact with that person, then this is your fault. And in reality, going no contact is a lot more complicated, especially when you're talking about an emotionally abusive family of origin, or a parent with a personality disorder. In my case, I happen to actually have that as part of my life. I have a parent with a personality disorder. It creates a dynamic in the family that's very, very complicated. Same with having a parent who struggles with addiction or having a sibling who struggles with addiction. And navigating this is incredibly challenging. And it is very oversimplifying to simply say, go no contact, right? I also happen to be the oldest of five kids. All right. And I'm in a blended family. So my sister and I share a set of parents. And then my brother has the same mom, different dad. My other brother has same mom, a different dad. And my sister has same dad, different mom. So, yes, that's a lot of stuff that's getting juggled around in my head and in my life. And the way that going no contact will impact my whole family is much more complicated because for most of my life, I have actually been kind of the scapegoat, right? Like I'm the bad one. And this creates a different dynamic as to how that is managed or handled in my family. I'm going to just kindly ask here that if you are a member of my family, you just shut this off right now. I don't know that you're going to want to hear what I say in this video. And if you do watch it all the way through, no phone calls from you. That's what I've got. Sometimes when I create this content, I'm like, this could be very, very real life high risk. Also, if you're my in laws, shut it down. So, at any rate, let's get started with some no contact considerations, things that you're considering when you're deciding if you want to go no contact or not. Okay. And if you are not in that situation, but somebody that you love is, I want you to know the things that they need to think about so that you are better able to show up well for them and support them. Because the last thing that you need when you are struggling with a decision to go no contact, or you do go no contact, or you don't, is having your support system come at you. about the choice that you're making here. This is a very personal choice, okay? The number one no contact consideration is if there is physical danger or abuse, there is always going to need to be no contact. And what I mean by that is if you are currently in danger or your children are currently in danger, you need to go no contact. In addition to that, if there is a sexual abuse situation in the past, that is very likely a person that you need to go no contact with. Um, I have a friend of mine who actually had a sexual abuse situation in her family with her, and the person ended up going into treatment, et cetera, et cetera. She chose to stay in contact with that person, but she was very careful about that person being around her children, right? That is her personal choice. I'm not going to discuss whether or how I feel about that or whether or not I agree with it. As a child, I was actually the victim of sexual assault by my uncle. And our family went no contact with the uncle. That meant, though, that we were not invited to family holidays. And I understand that you all might want to get in some outrage machine in the comments about this. This was my stepmom's brother in law. He had been in my life since I was a baby. He knew me my whole life. He was actually my favorite uncle. I was 13 when this occurred. It was very, very complicated, but the family, my stepmom's family decided not to take sides. So they invited all of us to every family function, and he continued to go, which meant our family didn't go. This created a lot of issues in my family. It ended up resulting in some extreme stuff happening with my stepmom and my dad and me. It was a whole mess. But there was no way in the world that we were going to go or that I was going to have to sit in a room with this person who had done this thing. That is a situation where I will tell you that if your children have been abused by someone, it is your job to protect them. And that means going no contact. That means you do not expose your child to that person. Period. Hard stop. That is it. Okay. You do not expose your child to that person. And if other people in your family or in your community or in your support system don't understand, please find a different support system because we don't expose our children to people who have physically or sexually abused them, period, in any way that we can prevent it from happening. Now, there are situations where we cannot prevent it from happening. This usually actually involves a situation with divorce where your ex has participated in this behavior or his family has, and you are struggling court wise to navigate the situation. I understand that. I want you to know that I get that. Other people probably need to be aware of that. Now, that is an absolute no contact consideration. Whenever I see it online where somebody says, if someone is unhealthy or toxic or unsafe, just go no contact. That's not possible if you are co parenting in a divorce situation. So we actually have a blended family. My husband's three children from before we were married all live with us. They've always lived with us full time. There have been times where his ex has been in a really unhealthy space. Okay. We can't just go no contact with her. She's the other parent of our children. That would be really unsafe and unhealthy for our family, for our kids. It's not always possible to go no contact. It's just not. And so that is an important thing to recognize. There are cases in which it is actually essentially court mandated. Okay. If you're 15 and your mom is toxic, if your mom's a narcissist and you're 15, it's highly likely that you can go no contact with her. I'm just putting that out there. So, really keeping the conversation about going no contact to a space where we're respectful of victims who have no choice but to be in contact with that unhealthy person is very, very important. It's very, very victim shaming, again, to consistently say so flippantly, just go no contact. Here are some other considerations when you're thinking about whether or not to go no contact. All right. One is collateral damage. So, collateral damage is very, very important when you're thinking about this person's not necessarily safe or healthy for me to be around, right? They're triggering, they don't respect my boundaries. We have some definite issues here. I have people in my life that I would not have contact with if it weren't for the collateral damage, right? This often, by the way, comes into play with in laws where you can say, this is not a healthy relationship. I don't have a healthy relationship, for example, with my mother in law. However, she's very close with my children. I'm not going to create an ultimatum for my husband that he has to choose between me and my mother in law, or for my partner that they have to be in that situation. I am not going to bow out of family events. Okay. But I am going to keep my distance here. So I'm not going to go all the way to no contact because of the collateral damage. I don't want the war in my household. This sometimes also happens when in your family of origin, your parents did not and maybe do not show up for you very well as a parent. Maybe they're unhealthy in a parent role, but they are actually wonderful grandparents. This is a very complicated thing why this happens. And that's a whole different video to create that we're not going to delve into here, but it does happen. And so you may decide, I'm going to stay in contact with my parents because they're wonderful grandparents, right? But I know that I can't get what I need from them. I know that that's not very healthy. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to work through this. I'm going to create some boundaries here where I feel safe here to engage, and I'm not going to go no contact. I think it's really important for people to also understand that going no contact is a big deal. When a person does choose to go no contact, they also deserve our support. You don't have to have it explained to you. You don't need to know. You don't need to decide, is it bad enough? Okay. One of the reasons people choose to go no contact, even when they deeply, deeply need to, one of the reasons people choose not to go no contact, I'm sorry, even when they deeply, deeply need to, is because of the pestering that happens, because people don't understand. This tends to, I've seen this happen more often as the person you've gone no contact with ages, and especially in mother-daughter relationships. Um, when an adult woman says that they have a very unsafe or unhealthy relationship with their mother, a lot of times people around them infantilize them, right? They say things like, oh, well, yeah, all daughters have problems with their moms, right? Oh, well, you didn't outgrow that teenage phase. That's not what's going on here. Okay. People say things like, mothers always do their best. All mothers love their children. Just so that we are clear, that is not true. And we deeply need to stop saying that. Okay. That is not true. Children, babies have a natural attachment. As a child, you have a natural attachment to your biological mother because their body was your first home. You grew within them for 9 months. Okay. But there are a lot of mothers who do not love their children, who do not do the best for their children, and who are dangerous and harmful to their children. We never say this about fathers. We never tell women or men that their fathers always love them. Okay. You have no idea the degree of abuse you could be excusing in saying that. No idea the degree of invalidation and how incredibly harmful it is to say that. So please stop saying that. Currently, as I'm recording this video, my aunt is no contact with my grandmother. I love them both. Okay. I love them both. It is not actually my business to know why my aunt is no contact with my grandmother. I happen to know because I was present and because my grandmother is trying to collect flying monkeys, meaning she's trying to get people on her side to be angry with my aunt to make this stop. My grandmother is 90. Okay. My aunt is very well aware of the age of her mother. She is not responsible to stay in that relationship because my grandmother might die, will die. Okay. And probably will die with them not being in contact. All right. If my aunt has made peace with that, That's her piece to make, and that's not my business. And it's not anybody else's business to tell her that she has to be in contact with her mom. Like, she's old, she's going to die. The things that have happened between my aunt and my grandmother, just the things I know about, okay, are absolutely appalling. Absolutely appalling. Okay. And it can be incredibly befuddling to other people. No one needs to tell my aunt that her mother is old. No one needs to tell her, but she's your mom. She loves you. No one needs to tell her, okay, that her mother did her best. All right. I love my grandmother. I'm very, very close with my grandmother. She is actually one of those people who has shown up well for her grandchildren. That doesn't mean that she showed up well for my aunt. Okay. And as an interesting piece of information here, and I'm going to move into this conversation next, a lot of times in households where there is a personality disorder or an addiction issue, the children are segmented. So every child has a different experience with the parent. And what that means is one child is a scapegoat, one child is the golden child, one child, this is textbook. You can Google this. Everyone knows this has been studied by psychologists. And that means that there may be one child in that family dynamic who has undergone profound emotional abuse and humiliation and mental abuse. And the other children, the siblings, may not know it. They could be conditioned to not know it. They could even be conditioned to join in. Okay. Meaning they are actually also perpetrators and they don't even know it because this has been going on since they were literally born. That is the family dynamic. All right. So my aunt having this relationship with my grandmother is between my aunt and my grandmother. And her siblings may not have experienced the same thing with my grandmother that she did. It's not theirs to understand or validate. And if you are a person who has gone through this, this is my experience. If you are a person who has gone through this, it is, in my experience, it is absolutely not going to work. It is a waste of time and energy and emotional energy to try to explain to the person who hurt you what they did, or to try to explain to the other people involved, meaning my siblings. Okay. Some of my siblings deeply understand this because as they've gotten older, they've noticed this. And some of my siblings still don't see it. Some of my siblings still think that I'm the problem, right? Because they've been told that their whole lives, that I'm the problem. Like, I try so hard with your sister. I don't know why she's like this. Okay. They were told that when they were really young, and they actually don't even know that they're believing it. They don't even know that they're believing it. They don't even know that this is happening. They don't even know that they're part of the actual abuse cycle. So it does not make sense then to go to that sibling and talk about it, because the likelihood of invalidation that's going to compound the gaslighting is really, really, really high. So that's the next thing I want to point to, which is flying monkeys. If you have somebody in your family with a personality disorder or an addiction or who is abusive, the likelihood is that they are all about enlisting flying monkeys. Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know what a flying monkey is, this is a reference to the Wizard of Oz. And the flying monkeys are basically the other people in your circle who get manipulated to be weaponized against you. Okay. So you choose to go no contact with this person because they are unhealthy for you. And now you start getting phone calls from all these other people in your family, right? All these other people in your support system who are calling you and saying, how could you do this to them? They're so devastated. They didn't mean to. They love you. Why are you doing this? And a lot of times what happens is the longer that this goes on, the more it escalates. And what I mean by that is at first they're concerned, right? Then they're concerned for the person that you have gone no contact with, right? So it starts off with, wow, I'm just really worried about what's happening here. And it turns into, I'm worried about them. Then it turns into, how could you do this to them? Then it turns into, you are a monster. You are destroying our family. You're ruining everything. Okay. What's happening is the longer that this goes on, the more that they're being pumped with misinformation. Okay. And again, because this has often been going on their whole lives, it's much easier to do this with a person who came from a family of origin that is like this. Okay. Versus a person who came from a more healthy family. Because this has been going on for a long time, they don't even know it. They don't even know it. Okay. It's really, really important if you are no contact and you're getting those calls that you do not engage. Okay. You do not fire back. You do not do it. Part of the reason is you will regret it. You will regret it. You will feel badly about it. You will never change their minds. Okay. But now you have engaged in the negativity. So in situations where I'm going to talk about this one in a moment where I've gone gray rock and I've gotten those phone calls. What I have done is I've said, I'm not having this conversation. What's happening right now is between me and that person and doesn't involve you. And I don't want to involve you. Okay. At which point I was told, well, they're telling me their side. You have to tell me your side. No, I don't. I actually don't have to tell you my side. I don't want to involve you. We have done this also with our children. We don't speak negatively about their other parent. We don't feel that that is right. When our kids were young, it did not matter what was said about us. We did not speak negatively about the other parent. Now, could we say, oh, that's not true, or it's more complicated than that? Yes, but we did not get into details about what had happened, why it had happened, why did we have full custody? Why we didn't get into details, right? Because we didn't feel that it was appropriate to do that. We didn't get into details about why the divorce happened. It just okay. We let it go. And there were times when that was really hard, and really, really painful. There were things that were said specifically about me that made it really complicated and difficult. But in the long run of the situation, our kids are all adults now. They're all very, very clear. When they became adults and they were in therapy, their therapist asked us to answer some questions, which we did. I highly recommend that a therapist be involved in that process if your kids feel like they need to know things, just for the safety and wellness of your children. But in that process, our kids already knew, and they were struggling with some, this is what I remember, but this is what I'm being told, and I'm confused. And so our kids kind of needed some time to process that. They generally will figure it out. They generally will figure it out in the long run. It can take time. It can be really, really hard. If you're a parent who has a child who's no contact with you because of parent alienation, that is probably something that we need to talk about in a different video. If you're a step parent who's struggling with this subject, um, put it in, let me know in the comments if any of these things are like, please do content around that, because I've kind of navigated it from so many different angles. But do not get in the mud war. Do not start firing back. Just please don't. For your own safety, your own sanity, do not, because whatever you say is going to go back to the person you are no contact with. They are going to twist it and gaslight the flying monkey to come back to you in a very, very hurtful way. So do not do that. Okay. It is sometimes easier to manage or reduce contact with the person than it is to go no contact. It is sometimes easier to go gray rock. Okay. Sometimes the reason why people don't go no contact is because flying monkeys and collateral damage and not being able to be with their siblings or their nieces and nephews on holidays, or not having aunts and uncles in their own kids' lives. Sometimes the understanding that because of the dynamic of your family growing up, that your siblings are not aware, okay, and that you will lose contact, your children will lose their cousins and will lose their aunts and uncles who are otherwise healthy, wonderful people. Okay. They're otherwise healthy, wonderful people, but that they will be gaslit and weaponized. And that you don't want that to happen to your siblings either is why you don't go no contact. Okay. That you are thinking or feeling or able to go gray rock, manage and reduce your contact, okay, and feel emotionally safe because that is absolutely essential that you can create boundaries so that you feel emotionally safe in that situation. And that is the better situation than all the other stuff that will happen if you go no contact. Okay. I think it's really important to recognize, for some people going no contact, these things happen and they happen for a month or for 6 months or for a year, and then people finally just give up, okay? That's not what happens for all of us. For some of us, this would be a lifetime, and it would also include a ripple effect of going no contact, okay? Meaning for some of us, if I go no contact with certain people in my family, I will also have to go no contact with at least 2 of my siblings, and that means I will have to go no contact with several nieces and nephews, okay? And I will also have to go I to follow this, my children will have to go no contact. So, because of something that happened in my family situation where I went complete gray rock and greatly reduced contact, with somebody in my family, my children are actually they went from being, thick as thieves, practically siblings with their cousins to now having an extremely distant relationship with their cousins. That has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do directly with the situation, right? It's because of the whirlwind that happened in our family after I created this extreme boundary, right? So what happened is I created a boundary that was I will have zero personal contact with this person in my family. Something has happened, zero personal contact with this person in my family. Okay. I will see them at family functions like Christmas or Thanksgiving. I'm not going to just be like, I can never see them again. I will be civil at functions, but I'm not having a relationship with them personally. This resulted in a full on barrage, okay? Particularly from one member of my family, from one of my siblings, where I was getting phone calls and emails and this and that. For various reasons, that sibling was hosting Christmas that year. I was contacted mid-December and told I wasn't welcome at Christmas. My kids and their children, to this day, this happened in 2007. It's 2022. So it's 15 years later to this day, that relationship is also fractured. One of my kids just asked me about this like a month ago and said, what happened? What happened to our relationship? And I think that this was a big part of what happened. Since then, things have been fine. Things have smoothed out in this relationship. We have a lot more contact now. There's a lot more safety there. Sometimes things happen. It's very, very complicated. Again, this can be another video or another piece of content, but there are situations in which there are changes or there's growth and sometimes that can happen after an event like this. Usually it does not. So now we have more contact. This person is back in my life in a personal way, not just at holidays and things like that. And we have been able to create some really clear, safe boundaries with each other and expectations, right? Of understanding this is what you're equipped for, this is what I'm equipped for. And so we have found some common ground. There are still times when I use a little bit more of a gray rock approach because I don't want to engage with certain things. Sometimes I get, for example, text messages that are kind of loaded that are, pretty dramatic about, did you do this thing in the family, blah, blah, blah. And generally I just respond with, look, if you don't know who I am, I don't know what to tell you. Right. That's just not something I would do. I'm not getting sucked into that. I don't get sucked. I will not become a flying monkey. I don't want to be involved in it. Now, on the other hand, I have another sibling who went complete no contact to the point of being like, I will not even come for holidays. Okay. And that sibling was fully supported. Okay. That sibling did not have the flying monkey response. The sibling who actually came after me completely supported the other sibling. Fascinating. Right? But that happens. That's a real thing. It is very, very complicated when you have a family of origin where you have some dynamics that are a little less healthy. And they have been less healthy growing up. And a lot of times, to be very short and concise on this subject, if you have a parent who had a lot of trauma in their childhood that went unprocessed and that potentially has a personality disorder or an issue like that in their younger life, as they're raising their children, a lot of times those dynamics play out in their parenting. When they get older and their children are grown, a lot of times past the age of 40 to 50, there is a little bit of stabilization in a lot of the different um, behaviors associated with personality disorders. And that means that that can create some changes. But the kids who are wrapped up in this, a lot of times have these schisms. Okay. Again, I'm not a therapist. I've been through a lot of therapy. I've read a lot about this, and I'm happy to talk about this, particularly with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and BPD, borderline personality disorder, in another video. But those two personality disorders a lot of times lead to behaviors that cause people to very much wonder if they should go no contact and very much struggle to do so. And a lot of times the reason is the dynamic within the family, the dynamic with the siblings and the nieces and nephews and all the other people and the flying monkeys and the weaponizing. And if it's a mother, the whole of society telling you, okay, the entirety of society telling you that what you're doing is basically a teenage temper tantrum. Mothers always love their children, they always do their best. Okay. I'm just going to tell you this. Maybe if you want to believe that, your mom did her best and maybe it was nowhere near good enough, and that doesn't make you wrong. That's what I've got for you. That doesn't make you wrong. You aren't wrong for wanting or wishing to have more now or to have had more growing up. You are not wrong. All right. So it really is a cop out for people to say mothers always do their best to excuse even some of the most heinous abuses. All right. Because I have heard people say literally jaw dropping things that have happened with their mothers and heard people respond with, yes, but she loves you because she's your mom and moms always do their best. Let's stop that. Okay. So if you do choose to go no contact, this is how it goes. You stop all contact. You let anybody know who needs to know that you are no contact. You don't need to tell them why. In a lot of cases, it's way better not to tell them why. You just simply say, I won't be coming to that because I'm not in contact with that person anymore. Right? I'm not in contact with the person anymore. If there is a physical or sexual abuse situation, sometimes it is important to tell why, because it's important to safeguard other people in your family. Meaning, I would absolutely want to know if one of my siblings was no contact with somebody in the family because their child was abused by someone else, by that person. I want to know that so I can keep my kids safe too. Okay. They are not obligated to tell me that, but I do wanna know that. And I mean, I have to tell you, it's like this close to like, are they obligated? Are they not obligated? I don't expect them to violate their child's privacy, okay? I am a person who would never say a single word, all right? But I would keep my child far from that person. I would not say to the child, "Oh, I heard what happened to you." I would not go telling other people in the family who it didn't affect at all. I would not do that. So I would be a safe person to say that to, and I would expect it be said to me. There are reasons I know why people choose to not share that information, and it's because they're trying to protect their child, and always protecting your child is first. Um, but informing people that, like, I won't be there for Christmas, maybe we can set something else up. can be really, really helpful. Um, it's very, very important that there is not an ultimatum. Do not explain this to the other person. Do not say, I'm going to go no contact with you, and here's why. If the person is unhealthy enough to go no contact with them, that's not going to work. We also don't give ultimatums. If you don't blank, I'm going to go no contact with you. Okay. We are not going no contact to change the other person's behavior. The reason to go no contact is to protect yourself or your immediate family. That's why. It is not to give ultimatums. Okay. Now, if you are in a place where you're like, I've been hurt, something has happened, which is where I was when I went with no personal contact. I've been hurt, something has happened. I need a break with this person. I highly recommend that you take that break, personally, that you back off on how much time you're spending with them, or you don't spend any time with them at all. But be very, very cautious about making a decision to not attend a group event when they're there. As soon as you do that, as soon as you don't attend a group event because they're there, you actually are going no contact, whether you intend to or not. That is oftentimes a nuclear option to everybody else in your life, okay? Because people then feel like, I need to decide who I want to invite to my Christmas or to my Thanksgiving, because if they come, you won't come. And a lot of times, this is not a fair situation, okay? Now, why am I saying this? Why am I pulling this out? Because when my dad, so I'm going to go into this thing that happened with my dad so that you guys know where I'm coming from. When my dad was living, my dad passed away 25 years ago. He went no contact with me. He went no contact with me because I moved in with my mom. Why I moved in with my mom is a complicated situation, but it was related to the no contact with the uncle and the stepmom. It was related to that situation. So I moved in with my mom. My dad was devastated, and he went no contact with me because of it. I did not know. He wouldn't take my calls. He sent me things back in the mail. It was quite dramatic. My grandfather was diagnosed with cancer shortly before this happened. And my dad gave my grandmother an ultimatum that if I was allowed in their house, he would not speak to them anymore. He gave them ultimatums that if I was present, like if I went to the hospital to see my grandpa, he wouldn't come, et cetera, et cetera. This was very intense, of course, very complicated. And by the way, I love my dad very much. I was always a daddy's girl. He was an amazing man with some major issues. Okay. So you can love a person who is really has some very unhealthy tendencies or does some really unhealthy things. But at any rate, so he would give ultimatums about this. Okay. He would give ultimatums, like he gave an ultimatum to my aunt that if I needed a place to live and she let me live there. And he said, if you let her live there, I won't speak to you. He didn't speak to either of us for many, many years, for to her longer than me, actually. He made amends with both of us before he passed away. Very shortly before he passed away, he had significant horrific regret. I mean, at the point that he made amends with me, he was calling me at least once a week to apologize because of the time we had lost together. It was devastating to him that he had made this choice to go no contact. Now, during that time, giving ultimatums to other people was not a wise choice. Okay. Giving an ultimatum to me would not have been a wise choice. We're not trying to give ultimatums. Okay. Giving somebody an ultimatum is an indication that, I hate to say this, but giving somebody an ultimatum is an indication that you're probably the problem, not them. We're not doing that. We can't change the behavior of other people. Okay. So we can't say to other people, you either straighten up and fly right or I'm done with you. If that person is not healthy, they're going to weaponize that ultimatum. They're going to gaslight you with it. You cannot do that. Going no contact is about creating boundaries that are safe and healthy for you. And the boundary that's safest and healthier for you is for you not to have contact with the person. That's the safest thing for you. Okay. So this isn't about changing them. This isn't about punishing them. And for those of you who know people who have gone no contact, please hear me say, when people go no contact, it is incredibly hard. It is incredibly painful. It is incredibly difficult. Okay. And it is not about punishing the other person. It is not about changing the other person. And if that is the situation, as for example, it was with my dad, the person who's going no contact is actually usually the person who has problematic stuff in the relationship. Okay. Who is problematic. That's the person who is unhealthy. All right. And so when you know a person who has gone no contact, you need to ask yourself this question. Is this person healthy and safe for me? Is this person healthy and safe? Because if that person is healthy and safe, the reason they want no contact is because the other person is not. Okay, what does this person say about why they want no contact? When my dad spoke about why he went no contact with me, it was because I did something he didn't like. He was very, very punishing about it. Okay. He collected all the pictures and all the cards I had ever given him for birthdays or Father's Day or whatever. He tore them up into tiny pieces. He put them in an envelope and he sent them to me in the mail. Okay. It was all about punishing me. And because it was all about punishing me, he needed other people to engage in punishing me as well. I've never, ever in my life met a person who has gone no contact in a healthy way, okay, to protect themselves and told other people that they must go no contact too to stay in relationship. Generally, it looks like I'm no contact with that person. I don't want to talk about them and I'm not going to be around them. But you do you, right? You do you. When the person who's going no contact is unhealthy, they generally want other people to join in. Okay. They want flying monkeys. And that's really a great way to know how you know. If you are no contact, I highly recommend that you check out Holidays Alone, because a lot of times when we're no contact, that means we do celebrate the holidays alone. It can feel very, very lonely and very, very isolating. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'll also include some content around grief in the holidays, things like that. The holidays can be a really challenging time, especially if you have these difficult family dynamics. So please check that out. If you are still engaging with your family, and you are borderline in that no contact situation, you have some unhealthy stuff going on there, please check out all of the content around feeling triggered, emotionally difficult situations, right? Emotional regulation, and all of the boundaries videos, because I think that they'll really help you navigate the holidays with some of these challenging dynamics happening in your home or in your family functions and get-togethers. All right, do not forget to subscribe to this channel. I am always here to help you build your very best life, because the truth is, you deserve it. You deserve it. I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.